Cody here. For those of you that are new to the channel, welcome. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons and other TTRPGs since 1984, so yeah, a very long time. For this video, I want to talk about VTTs, some of my experience I've had, both good and bad, and what you can expect from a few of them. So let's chat a little bit more about some of the tools and tricks that have helped me greatly when I GM. I've used VTTs for quite some time. There are noticeable differences between each of the VTTs. So which have I used? What are their benefits and drawbacks? So let's get into it. First, what are virtual tabletops? So in a nutshell, they are programs that either run on your own computer, hosted on a server, or some other way that every player and you can connect to play. There are several on the market that have popped up in recent years. So Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, Foundry, and Telspire are some of the top VTTs. There are others coming online, such as Alchemy, Arcana, and the D&D VTT coming likely 2025. That's not to be confused with their Maps tabletop that they just announced about a week or so back. Just a heads up that I have not used Roll20 or Telspire, so I cannot give you a lot of information beyond the basics. But let's get into the ones that I know a little bit. So be forewarned, this is not any sort of tutorial, just a comparison of several systems so you can kind of make an educated decision on which one you want to throw your money at. I'll start with the VTT I am extremely familiar with, Fantasy Grounds Unity. So this is available for purchase directly from their website or on Steam. There is a demo version, but you cannot host games on it. Just connect to someone with a standard or ultimate license. Speaking of which, there is a standard license and an ultimate. You can pay a monthly fee or just a one-time purchase. Each of these tiers unlocks certain functions within Fantasy Grounds. So Fantasy Grounds Unity is a Unity-based system, and every person that wants to use it requires a demo version to connect to an ultimate license holder. So the nice thing is not everyone has to purchase this, only the GM. So this does require a computer, a laptop, or a Microsoft Surface. It will not work at all on a Chromebook without a lot of mucking around with the OS, so it's not something I would recommend. It is not browser-based, so there is a limitation to it. You cannot run it on a tablet or a phone. As well, most games require you to purchase additional products that an ultimate license holder kind of shares with the players. Now, I say share, but once the session is over, players without these products in their libraries can no longer access them. So out of the VTTs, I think this is by far the most expensive, but it is the one that gets the most official support from creators such as WotC, Paizo, and more, because you do pay for all the products, and the companies get a cut of that money, so of course they fully support Fantasy Grounds. There are a lot of extensions and modules that can add in some automation to your games. Some are free on Fantasy Ground Forge, and this is one of the reasons that Fantasy Grounds can become incredibly expensive quickly. So I have a host of automations for 5e that I purchased during COVID, and it likely ran me about $600 plus the basic license. So it is not cheap. But then again, to keep my sanity, as I'm a very social person, I was more than happy to foot the bill so I could have digital human contact on a weekly basis. Now, I've only dabbled in Foundry. It is the go-to for Pathfinder. It has the most outside content creators that code modules or extensions for the system. It has some automation for rules, animation for spell effects, which you can pay for some top-end animation, and more. It's a pretty small investment for a GM at $50 US, and then there needs to be a computer to host the service. Now, you can pay for a server and leave it up so your players can always log in and mess around with their characters, but if you have a decent second computer, you can use that as well. Now, my computer is a pretty big beast, so I can absolutely run Fantasy Grounds. I can run Foundry on mine, and I have no issues with anyone logging into my computer, but your mileage may vary. So you'll want to check your system and make sure that it can work for whatever you're going to try to use it. For Fantasy Grounds, you need a very good internet connection because everyone is either jumping onto a cloud, which you are sending your information to the cloud and they're logging in, or they can directly connect to your computer itself by use of a proxy. It is secure. There's passwords and stuff, so you don't have to worry about that. Foundry, pretty much the same thing. You can use an outside host, such as the Forge is one of the best ones, or you can just run it on your own computer. Again, check your specs, do a little bit of due diligence before you jump into these. Now, Foundry uses all the OGL and soon to be the ORC content that companies post up for free. So as an example, everything on the Archives of Nethys for Pathfinder is on Foundry. There is no format that looks like a book, unlike Fantasy Grounds, but all the information is there. So in Fantasy Grounds, when you open up a module that you've paid for, such as the Player's Handbook or such as an adventure, you can actually see it just like you had the physical copy in your hand. On Foundry, you don't see it like that if it is just a basic version of, let's say, the Pathfinder rules. You don't see kind of a PDF looking version. It is a nice format, but it is not the same as Fantasy Grounds, so your mileage may vary. In Foundry, you can pay for additional things such as adventures, maps, tokens, stuff for creatures, etc. So there can be additional costs if you want, but there is a ton of free things that will work for you just as well. There's a ton of player written add-ons that are usually free, and this is one of the strengths of Foundry over Fantasy Grounds. But, and there's always a but, this is also a huge failing as well. The reason for that is if the base code changes, such as when they moved from 10.1 through version 11, these modules can break and they need to be updated by the mod authors. This can take a long time. People code this as a hobby mostly, so they update it pretty much when they can. And depending on how the underlying code has changed, this could mean substantial rework. Proactively, Foundry does release their base code in a test format, so module writers can get ahead of the release, which is very important to all the modders. So remember, when you're using Foundry and there are changes in the version, if you are heavily modded, you may want to wait until your mods have been updated before upgrading. There's a great interface that tells you what version everything is, so you can see if things will break or not. They're also adding in a minor 11.5 update soon that will automatically back up all your files in case you don't, which is a great quality of life improvement. But who doesn't back up their files? Now, I've never had the chance to use Roll20 or Tailspire or Owlbear Rodeo, so I really cannot give you more details on what they can do. Now, I've watched several videos on both and follow a few people on Twitch that use them in their games. Now, I really do like the 3D setting of Tailspire. Several Twitch streamers are using it, such as the GM's Workshop and Tabletop Notch, are a couple that just come to mind. The animations are well done, and the 3D really makes the action kind of pop. I guess the question is, does it animate too much? But that is a discussion for another time. You know, when does it become more like a video game than a VTT? Now, I fault no one in their choice of VTT and what they enjoy. You do you. Tailspire is the only one that is 3D VTT currently. I say currently because of the D&D one that's coming up, and we'll discuss that. Now, it can be purchased on Steam for $28.99 USD, and I believe it is only 5e compatible currently, so there is a detriment to that system. Eventually, they will have to contend with WotC's own 3D VTT, so time will tell what is in store for Tailspire. Now, Roll20 has a subscription model for $50 or $100 US per year if you want to use a lot of the functions. Players can use the free version. GMs will need a higher tier. Roll20 also has a lot of content not currently available on Fantasy Grounds or Foundry. I'm looking at you, Essence 20, the G.I. Joe game I want to play but can't because I don't have it on a VTT. But it's interesting and a bit frustrating when you're trying to get into certain games that you can only play online. Lastly, there are others coming online, such as Arcana, which is an augmented reality-based VTT. And I have played around with it a bit. It is currently in a beta and is finally available to use on a PC beta. And I was able to play with the building controls in the pre-beta. I will have some more videos about that one for sure. I'm very excited for the augmented reality, especially the life size they are doing, that you could literally map and walk around and interact with some of the environment. I could really see LARPs trying to use this out with some VR gear, and it could be pretty fun to try. Holodecks are coming. In a previous video, I also spoke about Wizard of the Coast launching maps. This is just a basic token handling map in alpha release. And if you'd like to see more on that, I will link it over here somewhere. One that I was recently approached to look at is another alpha VTT called Tabletop. It is months ahead of the Wizard of the Coast VTT, and they have a great Discord where you can chat with the owners and coders frequently, and they do have a form you can fill out to join in the alpha testing. I do strongly suggest you check that one out. It has some really good functionality. Yes, it is definitely alpha. Yes, there's a ton of work that needs to go into it, but yes, they've done a lot to it, and they're very communicative in Discord, which is really nice. I've had several emails with several of the owners, the coders. I've had chats with them on the Discord. Really good group of people. So yeah, please go and check out Tabletop. And I'm going to link to all these down below in the comment. So I could go on with a plethora of more quasi VTTs or VCT adjacent programs, but I'm going to save that for another video. So thank you for spending your time with me in this quest to become better games masters. If you're interested in more content, please like and subscribe below, and even click that bell for notifications on new videos. If you would like me to do a more in-depth review on Fantasy Grounds or Foundry, please let me know below in the comments, and I can add it to my list. If there are other VTTs that you have tried and would like me to look at, please let me know as well. Which VTTs are you using for your games and why? Have you tried others and swapped to others? I'd love to know in the comments. I'd especially love to hear from those that use a VTT that I'm not familiar with, and let me know why you love to use them. So in the meantime, and in between time, that's it. Another Mythic episode. Thanks for watching, and may all your games be full of myth, mirth, and magic. Bye for now.